Hey y'all, welcome to Leading the Pack, the platform that amplifies the voices of masculine of center queer women of color who are changing the game in their industries. I'm your host, K.Short, and today we're diving in deep with Kris San. She is a brand architect who's revolutionizing how creative entrepreneurs show up authentically in the world. Kris San considers himself the brand architect. She helps unseen technical creatives become undeniable. After 10 years of creative entrepreneurship, she built the place she wished existed. CWK is a creative command center for clarity, confidence, and brand power. Technical creatives have been the quiet backbone. Now it's their time to be seen, and this is what Kris fights for. So today, not only will we be exploring their origin story of becoming the brand architect, but we'll also see how her identity shapes and everything that she creates. So let's go ahead and get into it. Kris, thank you so much for being on the show and for allowing me to be inspired by your action to revitalize this podcast and wanting to just share your story. So thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Kris, we somehow found each other through the interwebs called LinkedIn. And I mean, first and foremost, I was thinking of just like beyond the nuances of just seeing someone that looks like me and is doing work that I'm like, what is exactly what they're doing? But not only that, we also have the same initials. And I was like, okay, we can't, we can't get too more obvious and coincidental than that. But there was a particular email you sent out recently that I remember when you sent it, and I was curious of what you were actually asking for from folks and what you were saying, but you were just mentioning that you were building something and it felt very behind the scenes and you were being very transparent about who you wanted to continue to build with. And so you said, if you're in, then respond to the email all in. I'm curious of what does all in mean to you?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great question. Um, you know, all in means right now we're at a time where we need to really be a part of community. There's no longer the I'm going to be indifferent or I'm going to see what happens or I want to try it before I commit. This is a
Mm-hmm.
time where you kind of have to find your people. You have to decide what your role in the world is going to be, and you need to take nonstop action towards that. And so that's what that email was about. It was about understanding like who in my network is ready to commit all into themselves first and foremost. And then secondly, how can CWK help them get further closer to what they are meant to do in this world? I think a lot of people are confused based on what they think the perception of something is, rather than really honing in into what we call their unique brand DNA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I really want to get into all of the business aspects of it, and we will, because again, we've been in this internet world for 10, 15, 20 years. But from my understanding, we're barely still just scratching the surface. And so, of course, there's going to be a lot of language where maybe a young person might be watching this and being like, am I creating a brand in some way? Is this something that I need to think about? Or is this something that's inherently been a part of humanity, but now we just have new language for it? But I think before we get to that really exciting part, I really want to talk about just your upbringing, and just again, a reason why I wanted to highlight your story was like we're currently in a time of humanity where we're having a lot of conversations about in the ways in which that we move through the world and the bodies that we've been born into. And I think right now I've observed there's a lot of stories of sometimes like giving up sometimes, and that there's no hope. But when I see people like you who are like, despite all of that, I'm also going to still rise up to the occasion and do something about it. And so that's why I'm just like so excited to hear more about your story. But I also don't want to give that it may not have always been that way. But I'd love to just learn more about like your upbringing and where was Kris San's first start into this beautiful world that we get to live in. So I guess the easiest thing is where were you born and raised and like where are you at in the family line and tell us more about your upbringing.
For sure, for sure. So I was raised in Caguas, Puerto Rico. So I went to school there, my whole high school, college, the whole shebang. I left. I was almost about to turn 25, so that's when I like officially left Puerto Rico. And growing up in a tropical paradise is very interesting because when you're raised where people go to retire and die,
Yep.
right? It's kind of like you live a whole life just to get to paradise. When you're raised there, it almost like what's left, what's next? Like you kind of feel like if this is the Mecca,
Mm-hmm.
then why do I want something different or why do I want something more? And so Puerto Rico being a place where, back when, I was coming up, it wasn't as gay friendly. And in a lot of ways it still isn't.
Mm,
The religion of the island is Catholic, so you can
mm,
imagine all the things there. I grew up in a very religious household, very judgy household. They have since evolved a lot from that origin, but nonetheless, I just always felt like I didn't belong.
mm,
And I was never too Puerto Rican because I was raised speaking English because my mom was raised in the States, raised me in Puerto Rico, and she wanted to make sure that like I knew both languages. And since I was living
mm,
in the island, I was going to learn Spanish there. And so she wanted to prepare me for the future and give me the best chance of success. And in doing so, it kind of left me with not belonging there or here. Because
mm,
when I was in Puerto Rico, I wasn't Puerto Rican enough. When I was in the States, I wasn't too American enough. So it was just this very like cross blend of a lot of things. Then I have an athletic background, so played basketball my whole life, played professionally, did all of that. And, you know, whenever that became my identity growing up, and now I'm 18, got a full ride to college, I didn't have mentorship because over there you don't get mentored the way that you get mentored in the US. It's a much more
mm.
lax and loose environment. It's like, well, you got to figure it out. You got to
Yeah.
show up. And so as a young girl that because I identify as she, her, and as a young girl that didn't have the right mentorship, and then I was like had this identity crisis with I came out in college and all of these different things. Like
Ah.
now I was just like completely lost. And so I kind of succumbed to the world of party, drugs, and all of that. And that world lasted about 12 years.
Mm,
So it was a long, 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 long road for me trying to find connection in the numbness of
mm,
partying.
mm. Well, damn, you're gonna end it on that sentence. No, I was like, well, geez, you want to go in that direction, but no, that's not an unfamiliar story. And again, why? And and it's one of those things, right? Like being in the States, maybe being in the West, we have this tendency to be very individualized, right? We think that our situation is new and no one's ever lived this life before, X, Y, and Z. But when you go to place, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong with Puerto Rico, but going from the East, it's more of a collective mindset, right? So it's like you're different, but we're also all the same, And so having I know for myself, being in the household where you didn't want to disrupt the boat, you didn't want to cause any problems, you didn't want to cause any rifts or roughs. But then, when I'm out in the street with my friends in the States, obviously, it's like you're gonna say how you feel, and you're gonna, yeah, maybe make some people uncomfortable along the way. But it was just a tension between the first gen experience, second gen experience of just like between two cultures. How did, I can only imagine how you navigated that. And I want to know how you did navigate it. But the first question I want to ask you is when did you know that you were different? What was the first thing that our peers or your family said that that's different about you?
Well, I have been told, my family has told me that I've always kind of gone to my own rhythm. So I always had this, like, I was always been very curious. I've always loved to try new things. I've always been very active, very outdoors, very like, you want to go explore the unknown path, let's go for it. So I always was like that. And then over time, life kind of made me more passive. And so it
Mm,
wasn't, yeah, so I had like a good chunk of like about 20 years where I kind of conformed to the point that I lost my voice. I lost my expression.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
just wanted to sink into irrelevance, but always fighting this feeling of like the potential that I had inside of me, the potential for greatness that I knew that I had, but it was untapped and it was unnurtured and it was unseen. And so that was like a very interesting journey there. And so I expressed through basketball, being really good at a sport. You don't have to talk that much. You can just show it with what you do. You get celebrated. You have that feeling of kind of like fame a little bit, right? Because when you go to a tournament and they're like, yo, number 13, you know what I mean? Like that's a feeling. And so when you grow up like that, Then I also had another signature trait to me, which is I had really long hair, like very straight long hair. So they used to call me Indian. So I used to look like Pocahontas. And so they used to, so then that was another kind of identity crisis thing where like when I came to when I left to Austin, Texas, which is where I moved after Puerto Rico, and I was like right almost 25 years old, I decided to cut my hair
Yep.
and short. And that's the first time that I do that. So when I do that, I lose all of the attention that I was so used to. So then I had
Mm,
to like kind of like, who am I without basketball? Who am I without my long hair? Who am I without being in this island? Who am I with now being a little fish in a big pond?
yep.
Versus being a big fish in a little pond. So there was just all these different things that were happening. And so for me, ultimately, it just forced me to choose my own path, to have my own path be forged by what I really wanted, and then find my voice again. So it became a journey of finding my voice again. And that's what ultimately creative entrepreneurship really taught me was how to find my voice.
No, I love that. And again, like, that's again why our experience is unique in that way. And it's not unique for anybody else where, everyone, again, we have this uniqueness. Yes, we're in the West, but also at the same time, hearing your story and being like, yeah, used to also be called Pocahontas, right? Also did play ball, also did used to have long hair. I'm like, yeah, I'm literally talking to the person ahead of me, 5 years older than me. But it's like how much again, my heart is like, oh, what if I did have older sibling Kris like to guide me in this process? That's really where my heart is at right now. So again, like coming back to the conversation, you talked about how you were put in these identities, right? Of having the long hair, of being on this island and etc. So I'm curious of like what other roles were you put into before college, before 25? So, you said you were Pocahontas, you're playing basketball. Where do you have any siblings? Do
Yeah,
you
so that's a big one because I'm
right?
older sibling. I'm the
Your
older
older sibling?
sister. And
Oof.
so in a Latino household, you know, being the oldest, it means you're the unseen parent. You're the undervalued third parent in the equation. And so you're always taught to put your needs last, your siblings come first. You
Yeah.
know, what you want doesn't matter as much as what your siblings need. And
Wow.
so, especially then when you go through a divorce in the household, now you go from the third parent to the other parent.
Whoa.
But you never get the benefits of that. You never get to say what you want. You never get to have any of the equity that comes with being the parent. You don't, it's wild. You get all of the responsibility and none of the
Yeah.
rewards. And so that's what forced me to almost really rebel when I break out at 18 and just completely abandon basketball and go into this other route where I'm just like disconnected from everything because I didn't want to think about responsibility and I just wanted to be a kid. I wanted to explore and I didn't want to have anybody telling me what I needed to do or not do. So that's what kind of propelled me to go into the rebellion for 12 years.
Yeah, no, some people still in the rebellion, my friend. That's why I'm saying, how do we support people transitioning out, right? And
Yeah.
what I think I'm hearing, and I think we're on the same page about this, is through our creative expression, right? So that's why I'm like, okay, like there's a way out, folks. And again, there's our beingness that wants to be expressed, and how do we do that creatively? And how did people like Kris do that? So
I think one thing to that as well that makes this a little bit more unique is that I have a sister. She's 3 years younger and she's also gay.
okay,
So that made it interesting. So two girls and a boy, these are all my siblings. And so we're both gay. And then the other thing is that she was born a musician. Like she's an artist, musician, creative. Yeah, she just, I feel like she came out of the womb just singing. Like she was just like la 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 la, like it just something like that. Like for
yeah.
sure, like playing instruments. She doesn't read music, but she can play instruments.
Oh.
It's really really beautiful to watch but also very intimidating. And so for me, because I was the athlete
Ah,
and she was the creative, I never saw myself as creative.
yeah.
So once I started unpacking my creative nature and seeing all the ways that I was creative,
Mm-hmm.
I actually, it took a long time for me to accept that. So that was another kind of unique thing when you kind of are raised in the shadow of someone's greatness on the creative side.
Yeah.
I was never encouraged in my creativity
Yeah.
because there was somebody that took all that light. And
That took
it's
that
not like
role.
it was a, yeah, and it wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't like she was doing anything on purpose, but it's just like oftentimes, we get rewarded by the things that are seen, not by the things that are unseen. And
Yeah.
so, a lot of the work that I do now comes from all of these stories.
Yeah. Yeah, that is something definitely to highlight. And just out of curiosity, what about your younger brother? What was his role?
So it's interesting because I'm 9 years older than my brother, so there's like this huge gap, right? So by the time I'm going to college, he's a teenager, and we never really, we didn't get that much time to live together, only the first 9 years of his life. But
Yeah.
we actually reconnected as adults, and we ended up rooming for a year in
Whoa.
2023. And that
Whoa.
really allowed us to create a new relationship where I really got to know him as an individual. We're the opposite, by the way, but it's super opposite, but he's a very intelligent man. We have a lot of intellectual conversations. He has a lot of wisdom, even though he's 9 years younger than me. And I respect wisdom at whatever age. I believe
Yeah.
everyone can teach us something, doesn't matter of what your age is or anything like that. And so he's one of my life advisors.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. If we were 9 years younger at some point, or even now, it's like some of these younger folks know way more than they need to at the age that they're at. So it's like we're kind of
Yeah,
meeting in the middle in a weird way. Um,
absolutely.
when you're talking about your creativity, when did you yeah, how did you express yourself through basketball? But I'm curious if there's something that was like in the nuances, in the nooks and crannies of how you still found a way to express yourself creatively growing up, especially, exactly what you're saying, being the oldest and navigating all these changes and these differences and being the parent, the third parent. Like, was there something in the background that probably others didn't know or, yeah, that you still dabbled in to express yourself?
Not a ton that they didn't know. I think that like music has always been a big part, but that's something that's still like unfully explored in my life even now.
Nice.
And so I play a little bit of instrument, but not enough to like really say like I play.
Yeah.
And so, but that's something that I would like to pick up later again as well. And then I just had a very active imagination. I've always been a storyteller. So I played with dolls and I played house and I played like, and I just create all these games and all these fantasies and stories and characters and things like that. So that was really mostly where I would express my creativity, was in the stories that I told with the toys that I played with.
Hmm. Hmm. What would you say is you know, that there's been roles that we've been given, but what do you feel like for your identity after we've gone through the list of like, okay, we've been called all of these things. How do you identify in terms of who you are as a person?
So, I honestly, I've never loved labels. And the only reason why I started embracing labels was because in marketing, you need labels. It's so weird. In order for you to
Hmm.
be successful in business, you need labels. But in
Mm.
order for you to be successful in life, you cannot have labels.
Okay.
So there's this tension between both worlds. And
Yeah.
so for me, I never saw myself as short or tall. I never saw myself as black or white or brown you know what I mean? Like obviously I am the color that I am, but I just never saw myself in these buckets.
Hmm.
And now I just try to use them as to my benefit whenever I need to use them, because I care more about someone understanding more about, because that's how the brain works, rather than like how to, my comfortability or whatever. Like I've kind of removed that from the equation.
Hmm.
And I mean, and people are going to see what they're going to see. So of course they're going to judge based on, they're going to judge the cover, because that's what humans do. That's the
Yeah.
natural progression. But for me, I try to see myself as labelless as possible. And I use them as necessary.
And it was like that growing up for you?
Um, you know, for me growing up, especially once again in Puerto Rico, being in that culture, it's very labely. Everything's a label. Everything's a judgment. There's just like a very judgy culture.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that that's what made me even more resistant to labels,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
because there was always trying to put you in a box, like you either do this or you do that. And for me, it's
Yeah.
like I want to do everything.
Yeah.
So that's the natural creative brain. But yeah, so that's just kind of something that I fought with, but then also just left behind as well.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And I think, again, I'm trying to highlight the fact that right now we're in a very labely culture. And as a young
Yeah.
person, we're very into our labels, and that's why of course, like they get to witness and see, like, yeah, use it as you will to get it, to have the conversations, to be in the rooms and to use it to your leverage and advantage. But also, once you get in the rooms, then there's no labels. You got in the room, it is
Yeah.
what it is. And so that's why I'm asking the question and just trying to figure out and understand how you transcended those labels despite being young people and being in a very judgy place, people who need to categorize us because it doesn't. I don't want to assume that you flipped a switch and then it's like, oh, I just not going to do the label thing. But maybe it was that you're like people tried to put you in these boxes and did you push back or did you just accept it as it was, or was it really in your own person, your maybe your first personal transformation when you went to college and had the chance to be somebody else?
I think that the anytime we accept a label, we accept its limitations.
Right. But you
And
didn't know that as a
so,
kid. You didn't know that at 13. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like you're talking to me
but
hindsight
but I
40/40,
knew it,
you know?
but I knew it intuitively. Therefore,
Yeah.
that is why I resisted it because I've
Yeah.
never wanted to be limited by these things. So
Yeah.
when I wanted to explore being, coming out and being with women for the first time when I was 18, I left home.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was about like breaking out of it so then I
Mhm.
can explore and bloom in my own way. And so that is why like I will always have this very strong intuitive nature about me that now I can give it language, of course, before I
Right.
didn't, but
Right.
I can explain why I was the way that I was. And I've just never been that person to judge other people or like with with the queer community, I've never really felt a part of it because it also feels very judgy and very labely and very all of these
Mhm.
different things. And just like I just don't I just there's a lot of I've been a part of a lot of different communities in my almost 40 years of life, and I can tell you for certain that I've had to build the room because I didn't find one where we could just be.
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah. And I like again, I'm not trying to like come from from a certain way, be like, well, what was the thing? But it's just like again,
Yeah.
this is the language we use right now,
Yeah.
and someone will click on this video because we look like we identify a certain way. But trust and
Yeah.
believe, I just moved to Canada and I'm like, yeah, where's my boyfriend? Where's Shawn Mendes? You know what I mean? Like, I literally was sitting with my partner's best friend and their kid, took him to a soccer game. I'm a whole ass like soccer tato, like, and I'm like, let's go, and they're like, we've never, what is happening? I was like, what? Because they don't surround them, they're not with a lot of masculine center folks. I was like, oh, well, you put an athlete, you go take me to the soccer, I'm gonna become a soccer mom.
Yeah.
But I knew in that moment the conversation when we were talking about soccer somehow, and in that moment I was like, how can I defy this kid's and this parent's idea of what they think of me, right? Just because
Uh,
presenting more masculine. So strategically in my head, we were talking about Canadians being polite. And I was like, how are you all polite? I'm just looking at differences. They're like,
yeah.
well, we wait in line for the bus. It's like, you're right. You do wait in line for the bus. That is different. Is that what politeness looks like? And I was like, you know what? I'm just happy to be here because my boyfriend's here. And then the kid was like, you have a boyfriend? I was like, well, yeah, it's Shawn Mendes. I was like, well, he's like a celebrity, but whatever. He's still my boyfriend. And then that rolled into the whole conversation
Uh,
about masculinity and femininity. And I was like, whew. I looked at the mom, I was like, can we go? Can we go down this road? So I'm asking you, can we go down this road? I'm curious of beyond all the labels, maybe there's an agreement that we have masculinity and femininity within us. How has it been expressed through yourself and how you navigate through the world?
well, I think that for me, I'm a paradox because I am masculine presenting, but I am very feminine as far as like the things that I like, who I am, how I express my mannerisms, and just I'm a female, you know what I mean? Like I've never not wanted to be a female. Like I've always embraced the fact that I am a female that likes other females, and I'm not going to pretend that I understand all the complexities of all of the different gender identities and narratives that exist today because I do not come from that world. Like you were either lesbian or you were gay or you were bi or you were straight. Like that's it. It was very simple. And so now that it's become like increasingly complicated and complex, and so I have no idea. And so for me, it's just like that. Like people are going to immediately put me into like that mask bucket.
Yeah.
And so as they get to know me, they'll realize that, oh, well, you're a soft butch or you're a soft this or whatever. And I was just like, look, I am a lesbian.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to even be able to say those words, because it comes with the package of you don't want to put yourself into these things, and you are who you are. But at the end of the day, it's like you look like it's about acceptance. I think that the older that we get, the more we begin to accept ourselves, and the more that we accept ourselves, the freer we become.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in the past, I asked, how do you identify? So beyond all the labels, I'm assuming maybe definitely a creative. Is that like the number
Yeah.
one? Or like, is that like your North Star right now, like a creative, or is it the creative entrepreneur? Like, well, yeah, I'm just curious, what language have you given yourself and being like, despite what you all have called me, this is how I like to name myself and identify.
Yeah, so I would definitely say it's a really good split between creative and entrepreneur. So
Okay,
creative
cool.
entrepreneur fix really good. I am not 100% creative, I'm not 100% business. And I've just seen it over and over again. When I'm somebody that's too creative, I'm just like, oh, that's stressing me out. And when someone's too business, that means that they're too transactional, and that stresses me out. So
Mm.
it really is a mix between both of them.
How would you define creative?
To me, a creative is someone that express through a creative medium. Even communication is creative. You
Hmm.
know, baking is creative. Like anything where you're literally using your hands, your mind, your heart, it comes from an authentic place. Like to me, that is creativity. It goes beyond anything tangible, and it exists. It's like the essence of the child. The essence of the child is pure creativity. It's
Hmm.
expression.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's what being a creative is, and you can infuse it in absolutely everything.
How would you define entrepreneur?
So entrepreneur is someone in my opinion that needs to build something that others will benefit from. So they
Okay.
see a problem, they find solutions, and then they're able to bring fruit from those solutions. And
Hmm.
they're able to feed other people from the problems that they solve. And that to me is an entrepreneur.
When you say you're not fully creative, you're not fully entrepreneur, what is fully creative? And then what
So
is fully entrepreneur? And then where does Kris fall in line with that?
yeah, no, these are great questions. So to me, a full creative person is someone that just wants to make art or wants to be in their craft and
Okay.
never understand how to monetize it.
Okay. Okay.
So, and then hates all things that has to do with like making money. Like they just want money to knock on their door, come in an envelope without them ever asking for it. So that to me is 100% creative.
It sounds
Then a
personal,
hundred.
Fred. You're like, this is what they
Then 100% entrepreneur or business person is
Okay.
someone that only thinks in numbers, only thinks in spreadsheets, only thinks in like how is this going to turn into money. And
Yeah.
so they don't think about the process, they don't think about what somebody feels about something, they don't think about the emotional aspect at all. It's just like what is the bottom line of this, and how is this number going to be bigger. So they think about people in numbers. That
Yeah.
to me is 100% business. And so for me, I am a little bit of both. So I am definitely creative. I love people being in an environment where they're inspired to do the work, where they would do the work even if they didn't get paid for it, because that's how much they love to be there. So
Yeah.
that's the creative part of me. And then the monetization, let's have resources, let's go big, let's have big
Yeah.
bank accounts, let's be able to do whatever we want, whenever we want, because we don't lack anything. So that's like
Hmm.
the business side. But I will never ever, and I made this vow a long time, I will never ever sacrifice people for profit.
Hmm.
So if we have to make less to be happier people, I
Hmm.
will make that trade every time.
Hmm. Would you say, being in Puerto Rico, that that's something that you probably witnessed to seeing people around you? I haven't been to Puerto Rico, but I've been to the Philippines, and sometimes you see the poorest people are the happiest people. They don't need a lot, but man, they are chilling on their tuk-tuk and they're having, their morning coffee just as much as anybody else to the tourists in that town. I'm just curious, right? Like, where was the value that you said, I'm going to value people over profit instilled in you?
You know what? That's a good insight, and I had never thought about it like that, but it could absolutely be it. Like I grew up poor, like not having a lot. We always grew up very, very, everything is accounted for. There's no extra. We have to share things. My sister got my hand-me-down clothes. We would buy a collection of clothes in Crest Kids. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And we would put it on layaway. And I don't know if you remember that, but that is a concept of buying it now and paying it later. And so you got the clothes later. And so by the time you got the clothes, it was already out of fashion, out of season. And so growing up like that, I never felt like I wanted, like I felt happy within that. I felt like I would made me resourceful. It was like, I'm going to do the best with what I have. And then I never had that chip on my shoulder about like, oh my gosh, I need all these things to be happy. I mean, put me at the beach, toes in the sand, and I'm chill. I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah.
So I kind of always had that feeling, and it could have very well been like the environment that I grew up in, because we always found a way to have fun, even when a hurricane would come. When a hurricane would come, and people are freaking out about it, like I would be a little excited, and no offense to like the destruction of it or anything like that, but to me it was like there was no electricity. We would play board games with our little candles, and we would just be in connection and in community, and that didn't happen when there was the electricity and there was the non-hurricane happening. So
Mhm.
that made me feel so good that really showed me what mattered, and I never wanted to lose that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I want to talk more about your creative entrepreneurship journey. Okay, from what I've
Yeah,
read online, you like started a clothing line, wasn't it? And you were like ready for it to be this awesome and amazing thing, and you did all the things and then it kind of got tripped up along the way. So why don't you share how you started expressing your creativity and entrepreneurship early on in your journey so far?
for sure. So I don't know, what anyone's beliefs are, but I believe in God. And so for me, God really, for me, inspired me. He like flipped a switch inside of me when I turned 30, and that manifested in the way of a clothing brand. And it was very personal. It was called KSSO, and that was all the initials of my family. And it started as a t-shirt, hat, and sunglass business or brand, and we did really well. People loved it. People to this day, and that was 10 years ago, still rep it, still wear it. It still
Whoa.
holds up, and it did really well. What I know now in hindsight that I didn't know then is that, once again, back to not having that mentorship or someone kind of really guiding me in my along my path, I felt like I had hit a ceiling of friends
Hmm.
and family, which is a very natural thing in business.
Hmm.
That's kind of like the first layer. Once you kind of go through the hype of all your friends and family buying and being excited for you and supporting you, and once that dies down, now you have to go into the cold market, is what they call it, which is strangers wanting to buy your stuff. And so
Hmm.
that requires marketing and sales skills. And so instead of me, right, having somebody tell me, hey, now this is the next step,
Yeah.
keep going. Now you've validated a product, you've built something great.
Yeah.
Now we have to do these things to make it grow. I was like, oh, well, the key is for me to shut this down and now start from absolute zero scratch video production. And
Okay.
so that is what I thought was a solution to my KSSO growth problem, was let me now become a completely different person and skill set, and that led me down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that I definitely in hindsight should not have done that. I should have
Mm.
just kept figuring out a way to make KSSO work because it had all of the bones to do so. And
Hmm.
so that was one of my big, big, big entrepreneurial hits
Mm.
in the beginning.
Mm. So that you went down video production, and this is what during what year? Just kind of give us hindsight because here we are.
Of course, of course. So 2015 is when I started KSSO. I started dabbling with video in about 2016, and by 2017, I'm completely all in video production.
Yeah, yeah. Why video?
Because I knew that video was a big thing. I knew I had to do marketing. I knew video, everyone kept saying video is more important than all the rest. And so I liked it. I fell in love with the camera. And it all happened because I hired someone, paid them $300 to do a video for KSSO, and the experience was so awful. I mean, so awful
So
that
I
I was
wasn't
like,
expecting that response. You're like, the experience was so great. No, it was awful.
it was
Okay.
so bad. Because they were a very poor business owner.
Okay.
It was so bad that for me, I was like, you know what? I just paid somebody to give me a terrible experience. I didn't even get the end product.
Ooh,
Why would I go and do that again?
yeah.
Which is like, hello, welcome to business. But why would I go do that again? So for me, I was just like, no, I'm gonna learn it and I'm gonna do it.
Would you say you started off as a creative entrepreneur, or do you feel like you took on the role first as a creative and have all of these experiences as a creative? And then I want to know, like, when did it switch for you, or a blended experience of like entrepreneurship, and then now you're bringing it together here with CKW, or with CWK? Tell me about your creative experience, because I can hear a lot of frustration and even a little
Yeah.
bit of like jabbing, being like, no, you need to learn your numbers. So
Yeah,
I
no,
can see where you're
because
coming from.
these are the things that I wish that I would have been told instead of what I thought was what was the path, right?
Yeah.
And so it would have saved so much more time and heartache along the way. And so that's why I say it for those creatives that feel like, oh no, I just need to get better, or I just need to do that hit, or I just need to go viral, or I just need that one person. It's never going to be that one thing. It's the skills of marketing and sales.
Yeah.
But for me in that moment with as far as being a creative, for me creativity or me being called a creative or seeing myself as a creative didn't come until I started pursuing video production. That
Hmm.
like so with building KSSO and doing all of the things that were incredibly creative and hiring people and putting I put a whole team together and I didn't even know how. I had like 5 employees for free that were working for free. Like
Whoa.
that's one of my creative gifts. But I
Yeah.
didn't even know that that was like a thing because it's just so natural to me. So it wasn't until I started pursuing video production and then I got an internship at a production house that I really started stepping into that role of creative.
And how long was that experience? And what was the best parts of those experiences? Identifying more as a creative in that creative field. And then what are your frustrations as being a creative?
So for me, the thing that I loved about creatives or creativity was just the expression, was just the playing, having fun, time being passing, and you're just not even aware that an hour just went by, and you're just like making something, having something not being there and then being there that came from your mind, and so all of those aspects I enjoyed so much, and I saw some amazing creatives do amazing things, and I was like, how can I touch that level of greatness? So it really became a path to pursue for me. And as far as my frustrations, it was just like, once again, I think it's just like a lot of people struggle with communicating and learning how to communicate. And so when you're a young person coming up in anything that you're just not going to know anything, you're ignorant. And so not having people explain to you why something doesn't work or why that video sucked or why they don't want to pay you or why all these things are going to happen instead of them
Mm.
telling you, like I had a lot of people when I first started doing video not tell me that I suck. They were like, "Oh, that's great. That's good job." And I'm just like, "It's not a good job. That's terrible." But I was very proud of it because I created something. Right. And so to me, I was just like looking back now, I could see how like I was being cringe AF thinking I was proud of it. And then all of these people, never told me. And it's like having a booger and like nobody's telling you you got that booger, like it was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
And so those were the parts that were very frustrating about it is you having to learn everything on your own, looking at the mirror and being like, man, have I had that the entire time? And I just refuse to let somebody next to me be out there with that booger.
That
That's all
part.
I'm saying.
That part. I'll tell you this. That story is so relatable that that's how I base my friendships off of it. Like, I am that
Mm.
friend that I will tell you there's something in your nose or in your teeth, or if you got eye mocha or something, right? You got mota, I'll tell you. I'm not that friend to let you go out in them streets like that. And so my best
Yeah.
friend and I connected over this because she was a manager. I worked at Buffalo Exchange, and she has certain teeth where it gets caught and her food gets caught in a certain place all the time. And she's talking to everybody. By the time she comes to me, because she's making her rounds on her team, by the time she comes to me, I tell her, yo, you got something right there this whole time. No one has told her along the way. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, and vice versa. If I have a booger and you don't tell me till I get to the mirror, I will literally stop engaging in that interaction. I'll come back from the restroom, whoever I'm sitting at dinner with, and be like, y'all just let me sit here like this. I'm gonna dismiss myself from this conversation because you's not a real one, you know?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you's trying to be a real one and trying
Yeah.
to support and guide people and potentially even mentor people to to let them know they got a booger. Let them know they got a booger. And the booger is what's the booger? The booger is they got to learn their numbers. What else do they got? What else do creatives got to do? What's the booger, Kris? What's the booger?
They gotta choose one thing. They gotta choose one thing. Like one thing. Like anytime somebody tells me I got two businesses or I got 10 hobbies or I got five things that I'm doing or seven projects, I'm just like, you got a booger. So because at the end of the day, like we only have 24 hours in a day. And
Okay.
so in order to do anything that's worthwhile, anything great, it requires all of you. It
Wow.
demands all of you. You can, especially when you haven't built it ever before. Like let's say you're doing your first company and getting to your first million, which is a big milestone for a lot of entrepreneurs, and one out of 300 people ever get there.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot. And so there's so much about business that needs to happen in order for something to work. Like this is a game that you could have all the pieces,
Yeah.
literally all the pieces. But if you don't have them in the right order, it doesn't work.
Dang.
So it's just so finicky that for you to have any distractions, it's just going to set you up for not hitting the goals that you want in life. And then the only regret is going to be that you never made it, and for you to spend a whole lifetime almost there,
Mm,
that is painful.
yeah. Yeah. I can feel this booger's pretty big for you. So tell me how CWK solves this booger, friend. Tell me how CWK solves this booger.
So number one, we're the mirror. We're the mirror. We don't tell people what to do. We show them what it looks like. When they don't, we show them what the market looks like. We show them what the numbers are. We show them, hey, this is what it requires. This is what you say you want financial freedom. This is what it takes for financial freedom.
Yeah.
And then you get to decide, if you're willing to pay the cost, because
Yeah.
that's all it is. If I want a great relationship, I need to pay the cost of being vulnerable, of
Mhm.
communicating, of having hard conversations. Like if I want a great business, I have to pay the cost of all of the skills that I have to learn
Mhm.
in order to have a sustainable business. Because the other thing is that, like, if let's do it very simple with fitness. I'm on a fitness journey, and in order for me to hit my goals, once again, the numbers, I need to track my food. I
Mhm.
have X amount of calories. I have to be in a deficit.
Mhm.
Already with tracking calories, that X's out the majority of people, because they will never track their
Yeah.
calories.
Yeah.
They will never want to track their calories. You know how annoying it is to track your calories? It is terrible. And are there apps and programs, which I'm in a program that's making it so easy for me to do it? That's what we do. That's what we are. There's no other way around it. If you want to be fit, you want to get to your goals, you're going to have to go through this process.
Yeah.
But we are providing the tools and the environment and the guidance to make it easy for you to do hard things. And that is what CWK is about. And that's why we are positioned as a command center.
I love that. Yeah, I even the metaphors of the command center and the superhero and the Avengers. I'm like, yes, I'm all in on that. I love it. I love it so much. So I will actually ask you this question from email to in person. Which Avenger are you and why?
For sure. So that kind of shifts a little bit. I feel like I have a mix of a couple of different people. But I definitely have a Captain America syndrome for sure. And then also an Iron Man vibe as well with all the tech and the command center and things like that. And then we do have a little bit of Batman in there as well because we're very much like you throw the signal and then we appear. So, right.
Mm.
So we have that from Batman, tech from Iron Man, and then just the community vibe from Captain America.
I love that. I mean, I think that metaphorically that crosses all bounds for everyone to understand what CWK is about, right? And especially wanting
Yeah.
to work with you. So, my last question for you before we wrap up. You say you help people build brands that stand out, connect deeply, and leave a lasting legacy. What legacy are you most afraid of living and leaving, and what legacy excites you most?
So the legacy that I'm afraid of leaving is the girl that tried but never made it. The one that I am most excited to leave is the friend that was there for you
Mm,
against all odds.
mm,
Like
mm.
I was the real deal. Like I didn't pretend to care, I actually cared.
You let them know there was a booger in their nose, and you wanted to help
I
them get that
I
booger.
showed them the mirror. I did what no other friend
That part.
w- wanted to do.
That part. That part.
Yeah,
All right, Chris. Before we wrap up, I do think people want to know what CWK stands for, and then, of course, where we can find you on the interwebs. So,
absolutely. So CWK are the three ingredients of success. The first ingredient is for you to have anything, you have to attract it
mm,
through caring. You have to care to attract, right?
mm,
Then the second ingredient to success is maintaining it, right? Once you attract the success, you have to maintain the success. How do
mm,
you do that? Through wisdom.
mm,
And the third is how do you multiply that success? And that is through kindness.
mm.
So CWK, caring, wisdom, kindness.
Wow. When did that drop on you? When did God drop that on you? That's the
That's
real
what I'm
question.
saying. That's what I'm saying. That's how he hits it. He just like all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
Here you go. It really does feel like a download.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I consider myself a co-founder in CWK. And God is my other co-founder. And this is a company for the community. This is where communities come to build their printing machines or cash printing machines and they get
Good.
to use those resources to then build their dreams.
Yeah, I love that. So, if someone is feeling stuck in their business or their creative journey because their brand lacks clarity and structure and all the things, what's the first step they should take to connect with you?
I would say CWKconsulting.com. You know, it's very straightforward. We have a calendar there. It's called the Experience Tour. It's 20 minutes. And regardless if you end up working with us or not, you will be more clear by the time you leave than when you got there. Because at the end of the day, this is not about like us just yeah, yes, do we want to make a ton of money and grow and do all these things amazing? Yes. But the most important thing is planting those seeds and leaving people better than what we found them.
I love that. And do you have any resources or ways for our listeners to get started on this journey of brand clarity with you?
Well, other than the free 20-minute experience tour, we also have YouTube. I drop a lot of content in my Instagram, LinkedIn. Now I'm starting to piggyback on Facebook as well. So free content where we're dropping a lot of brand building wisdom and also feel free to DM me. You know, I'm a very helpful person. And if it's not me, I could point you in the right direction.
Awesome. And the last question is if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about the power of authentic self expression and being a creative and an entrepreneur, what would it be?
Don't be afraid of your power.
You've been thinking about that one for a while,
A very long
huh?
time.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Leading the Pack. Chris's story was so powerful. Chris, thank you so much for sharing it. And if it resonated with you, make sure that you subscribe to Leading the Pack wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be here on a monthly basis, amplifying voices of masculine centered queer women of color who are just awesome leaders doing amazing things in their fields and industries. So leave us a review if that would be helpful for our community. And again, follow us on Instagram at Tomboi International for behind behind the scenes look of the content and updates of upcoming guests. So again, Kris, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to continuously connecting with you. And yeah, again, for our listeners, and what I'd like to call us is the worthy wolves. Remember that you have everything you need to lead the pack in your unique way. Until next time, run with intention, lead with heart, and howl your truth because the world needs your wild. So don't you dare tame it. All right, y'all. See you in the next episode. Bye now.
Thank you.